Hello everyone. So I'd like to explain about poetry today, the elements of poetry. As you remember, maybe last semester we discussed about song lyrics, and maybe we didn't have much time to talk more about that. But in this opportunity, I'd like to explain more about the elements of poetry. All right. I hope you can see my slide now. Well, wait, sorry. All right, there you go. Sorry, it takes some time. Well, what actually makes a poem? What makes something become a poem? What makes it a poetry? Let's take a look at the text here. Do you think this is a poetry? Why do you think this is a poetry? Or why don't you think this is a poetry? I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Is it because I read it like that it sounds like poetry? What if this is just a note that is pasted on the wall or on the fridge by someone who have eaten somebody else's fruit? Or maybe in our context of everyday life, maybe I don't know, you eat your brother or sister food or cake, or maybe Indomie, their instant noodles or their chocolate. But in this case, yeah, this is a plums. These are plums. So plums are fruit. I suppose that you know this, because now I think we can find plums anywhere in the grocery. Yeah, it's not something that rare to find, unlike before. So yeah, this is actually a poem because you can see the form of the words. It has the way it is written. It doesn't just flow like that when we write, like when we write a letter, but the words are not so many, and then it is arranged in a paragraph, separated paragraph, and the way the words are separated, they have meanings. The poet have meanings by arranging the words like this. Okay, this is a poem. This is Just to Say. The title is This Is Just to Say, and it's written by William Carlos Williams. You can check that out in the internet. It's an old poem, but it's very meaningful, and everyone can enjoy this poem. Depend on their background, their age, their social and culture background. You see, a kid can read this, an adult can read this, teenager can read this, but they can have their own interpretation. So that's what unique about poetry. Okay, so I'd like you to think again. If you think you know poem, maybe we should think again. How far we know about poem. Okay, so let's take a look at the first element of poem, which is words. So there are only two elements of poem. The first one is words, because all it takes to make a poem is an idea. Does it always have to be a bright one? Maybe we should think again. It can be actually something very simple but is unseen in our everyday life. But the thing is, poems, that's idea, or it says something. This is what usually mislead our thinking about poetry, that we think we have to find that idea that the poet wants to say. But we forget, as a reader or as an audience, we are the one who also construct the meaning, who also create the meanings. This will be explained on the next point. Okay, so the idea that we find it most impressive one, like the one that we think impressive, maybe doesn't always be the same with other person. What impress us doesn't always impress other. So what impress you, you select that, you arrange that, and you rearrange that. Poetry is not something easy to make or to read sometimes, because yeah, it takes inspiration, it takes reflection, it takes contemplation about the subject that we want to say. So actually, any word can be the right word if it is carefully chosen and placed. Okay, but of course, in choosing the word, we are limited by our vocabulary. That's why literature or poetry enriches our vocabulary, because it takes certain level of language skills to understand literature, to understand poetry, for example. And what we usually do is we usually leap, like we jump into conclusion. We leap at once to the poem's general theme. So this is a trap, okay? So we need to take a look carefully before we make a conclusion. Conclusion should be the last thing that we can refer to after we connect or we relate the meaning of words in its line. Yeah. After we understand the symbol in the poetry. Okay. So poetry doesn't always have to be a puzzle. It doesn't have to make us confused or dizzy. Okay, it can be a simple one, but it's very meaningful, like the one that we just read before. This is just to say. And there are so many others poetry that is very simple but meaningful. And that's the uniqueness of poetry. It's so packed with meaning. Okay, so reading a poem is actually a process of making meaning rather than discovering a meaning. So we are the one who also participate in making the meaning of a poetry, of a poem. Okay, so a poet always looks for noble sounding words so that we can enjoy the poetry. Novel sounding words is the one that we also find in song lyrics, because it rhymes. So it feels good to say that. It feels good to sing that because of the words itself. So the first thing that we have to do is to develop our feeling about words. And this is what's important. Okay, because in language learning, we usually learn grammar, which is like the system of the language. But in literature, we develop the feeling toward the words. So that's where the emotion comes into play. That's where the soul comes into the words. So it adds the meaning of the words. But how can we develop a sense of the language itself? Okay, we'll take a look. That's a big question that we need to train ourselves for that. Okay, but then in a poetry, we should realize about their theme and subject. So the subject is the topic or the material of that the poet has chosen to write about. That's the subject. And the subject can be anything. It can be person, it can be an animal, it can be plant, it can be earth, it can be anything. And the theme is what the poet say. The poet is the one who make the poem, okay? What the poet say about the subject. So the theme is about what the poet say about the subject. Okay, so the theme expresses the feeling about the subject. It can be explicit, it can be implicit. All right, so yeah, this is something that we should realize. Like maybe in each song that you hear, you realize what is the theme and what is the theme of this lyric and what is the subject that the poet is saying about. Okay, so there is a subject and there is a theme about what happened with the subject. Okay, next is imagery. From the word image, I'm sure you know image is a picture. So there used to be these imagists, or maybe until today, a group of poets that belongs to this belief, yeah, that the best poetry should be visual and concrete. The best poetry is the one that can make us see something, even though not seeing with naked eyes, but the way they describe the object, it makes us really can picture the object in our mind. So the images believe that the best poetry is like that. It is capable to reappear the object in our mind, in the reader's mind. And image here is quite it's quite physical. Yeah, it's something that we can see, hear, smell, touch, taste. So it's from our five senses. Because when a poetry can awaken our senses, that's the best thing that they can do, because it can suddenly make you feel shiver. It can make you feel cold or hot. It can really make you smell, imagine. You can imagine yourself smelling the roses, smelling the sea, smelling the rain. So the best poetry is capable to do that, because the way they describe the object, the way they portray the object within words. All right, so we need to intensify our response to images. So I think this is related to Sherlock Holmes when it says that other people only see, but I observe. So you see, those who are intelligent are the ones who can see something with a different lens from other people do. So we see something that other people don't see, even though it is right in front of us. Like for example, when we climb the stairs, not climb the stairs, we take the stairs, how many people will count the number of the stairs, you know? So there is a big difference between seeing and observing. And scientists, poets, artists are the one who observed the things around them, even themselves. Okay. All right, so words only remain words until we apply our own experience. That's how we add meanings to the word. The way we apply our experience and imagination to make the words more vivid, more real. Yeah. So images are concrete because they communicate immediately and intensely to the reader. All right. Let's take a look an example here. And you can send me also yours. This one I made I think several years ago, and I I don't really remember it anymore actually. Maybe, but I think it's quite similar with the original version. It's just I lost the file, so I tried to remember it, and yeah, this is it. It's like a riddle. I heard him coming, ripping the air. He seems like a knife sprung from its pair. The smells of blood, a deadly fragrance. I touched his eye, and I bleed in my mouth. In my mouth. He's an iron seed. Can you guess what I'm trying to describe here? Okay, maybe I'll let you know next week. But if you have your answer, maybe you can tag me. Maybe I'll put it in my story later, and then you can answer me there. There will be no prize because I don't know what prize to give. A giveaway maybe. But however, if you can make something, if you can try to describe an object also with using your 5 senses, that's very great. And please tag me in your Instagram, okay? And I will try to guess what that is. All right. Next, we're still in words, yeah. The other part about poetry in its element of words is the figurative languages. So you see, it's taken from the word figure also. Poetry, even though it is made of words, but it's full of picture. So it's a picture that is painted in words. Actually, that's what poetry is. So figurative languages means language that describes something, that draws something in our mind. Okay, or in Bahasa Indonesia, I think we know that as majas, if you remember. So there are several examples here of figurative language, which actually there can be around 50 somethings the types of figurative language, but we're not going to discuss all of them. Maybe just some here you can see. Hyperbole atau hiperbola ya, exaggeration of expression, berlebih-lebihan, extreme and expressive. For example, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. You see, like we like to exaggerate something. Even in our daily conversation, it's not always in poetry. So I want you to see here that the language of poetry is not only be found in poetry only or in song lyrics, but we are using these figurative languages in our everyday conversation, yeah, with our daily talk. You see, we really like to exaggerate something, actually. Another example, I have a million things to do. Is it really a million things? He's got tons of money. He's as skinny as a toothpick. So if you can think of some hyperbole in Bahasa Indonesia, you can write that down, and maybe I'll ask you next week, okay? There are so many examples of hyperbole also in Indonesia, like when you say, kamarku seperti kapal pecah, or well, when you love someone so much, you can say something. There are many expressions that you exaggerate when you express the way you like something or you like someone. Okay. And you see here how emotion really affect our perception actually. Do you remember when maybe you have this experience when you have a friend who is crazy about someone, and the way they describe them is like they're describing gods and some famous or actress that they adore. Well, we always exaggerate someone that we love, something that we love. All right, the next one is irony. Irony is the discrepancy of what is said and what is meant, or what's expected and what happens. So irony is like what is said is different, yeah, with what happened. This is used actually usually is used as a mockery, to mock something, to mock a condition, and the function is to be playful with words. Yeah, usually in comic, it can be like a satire. For example, here, water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. You know what does it mean? There water everywhere, but we cannot drink it. Well, this can refer to a flood, which I think is going on in some places now in Indonesia, especially in Jakarta. Or you can see what a nice weather we have when you're actually having a hurricanes. So that's an irony. Yeah? Right, next, metaphor. Metaphor is actually, it can be a symbol, but in this figurative language, metaphor is very specific. It's a direct comparison of one thing to another. Usually, the sign of metaphor is the use of to be in a sentence. And the way it describes, the way it says, the comparison is like X is Y. You see here, there is a to be. So for example, if you hear something like this, my love is a bird flying in all directions. This is a metaphor because it uses to be. And it said that my love is X is Y. My love is a bird. That's a metaphor. Kisses are the flowers. His uncanny words did not appeal to her taste. That's a metaphor. They say that scars are the roadmap to the soul. Okay, let me know if you have some questions about the figurative languages, okay? Otherwise, I will ask you to find some example in our everyday language. Okay, next is metonymy. Metonymy is the substitution of word closely associated with another word to replace it. Here's an example. White House refer to government in USA. Green light, a permission. But this also depends on the culture, okay? It can be geography, it can be nation that can influence the meaning of this metonymy. Okay, green light mostly is considered as permission because in the traffic light maybe the sign is green and we can go. A red house is prostitution. This also will depend on the culture because red can actually, like in Indonesia, it means brave, you know, and then maybe in China it means luck. But yeah, for this case, it means something negative. It can be also a sign of sexy. Okay, and then a silver fox. Silver fox is a phrase to say, to express attractive older men, maybe like Richard Gere, like a man that's getting more handsome when they get older. Okay, and then a hand, like she gave me a hand, like she gave me a help, yeah. Hand here represent a help. Okay, that's metonymy. The next one is paradox. Paradox is a pair of ideas or words or images that appear to be self-contradictory. Okay. Maybe you kind of find similar between one figurative language with another, but there are actually a difference. For example, this paradox with irony. You can review that again later, okay? So, for example, here is deafening silence. Deafening is deafening, but it's silence. You see, this is like very contradictory. What is a deafening silence? Can you imagine a situation when there is a deafening silence? Maybe you're having a fight with your mom or dad or brother, sister, or your boyfriend, girlfriend. You don't talk to each other, but actually you scream inside. So it's deafening silence. No one is speaking, but it's really loud. Okay, and then there is a cruel kindness. A kindness that is cruel. You can think of example of this, a cruel kindness. Deep down, you're really shallow. So that's contradictory also. The beginning of the end also. And bittersweet. I think you've heard this many times. All right. And then the last one that we're going to discuss is simile. Simile is quite similar with metaphor, actually, simile. It's a direct comparison between unparticular essence of words or things. And the sign for a simile, you see here is the word as or like. So it's very easy to find simile actually, because there is this word as and like. So when it compares something, it says X is like Y. For example, C is as lovely as the ocean at dawn. He is as busy as a bee. This is simile because there is the word seperti ya. Jadi ada kalimat penanda seperti. So it's quite easy to find simile. You were as brave as a lion. Berani seperti singa. Jadi ada kata seperti di sana. The clouds were like ice cream castles. Okay. Well, we come into sound. This is the second element of poetry, sound. And sound is, why does it important? Because you see, poetry is not only about words. It is not only about the written words, but it also about how does it sound. Even though this is not a song lyric, okay? Even though this is just the poem. But when people read the poem, the way they read that, it also affects the meaning that is delivered to the audience. So why sounds important here? Because as a human, we have this universal appeal of music, and it suggests that our human ears delight in sound, which are repeated. As like when we hear this advertisement, maybe like the advertisement of Shopee or any other advertisement that being sung or repeated again and again until it brainwashed your mind, so you remember this thing, and without you realize that we are affected by the words. Okay, so yeah, the poetry also has music, even though even though there is no guitar or piano, but the way it is read, it creates the music itself. Okay, and there are three sound devices of poetry. The first one is alliteration, the second one is assonance, and the last one is rhyme. We'll take a look at that. All right. The first one is alliteration. It is the repetition of the same consonantal sound at frequent intervals. So what's being repeated is the consonant. I'm sure you know the word consonant. Yeah. So the use of alliteration can help us to create a connection or contrast between ideas, and sometimes it can also be just a decoration. So in a poetry, sometimes we are trapped in the decoration because poetry should be, sometimes it has to be beautiful. So we like to decorate the words, but maybe some readers are trapped into that decoration when it actually doesn't have a meaning sometimes. For example, here, a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow free. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. You see, the consonants here are so strong, like the word, the letter B, F, and then S, R, S, T. So the repetition of those letters creates some music in our ear, yeah, when it is read. Even though we don't read it loudly, we just read it in our mind. It still gives certain effect. It gives a certain pleasure. Okay, next, assonance. Assonance is the repetition of similar or identical vowel sounds. So this assonance is about vowel. For example, here, he gives his harness bells a shake. This is a poem by Robert Frost. Maybe you have heard of him. He's very famous American poet. So if we read this, okay, sorry, I will repeat again. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is a mistake. The only other sounds that sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So the repetition of the vowel here are also affect the sound when it is being read. Yeah? The word E here are dominant. And the repetition of the last line also have some meanings. And usually the writer wants to emphasize that, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Also, you find this in a song, in the part of the refrain. Refrain. Okay, the repetition of one paragraph in a song. Usually, that's the one that is like the meaning. No, not the meaning. The center of the lyrics, because it is being repeated again and again. So the messages are usually stronger there. Okay, let's take a look at the last one. So yeah, this is the rhyme. Rhyme is repetition of both consonant and vowel at the end of the words. Okay. And there is some term here, like for example, rhyme scheme, a pattern of rhyme, usually in a sonnet. Or if you remember pantun in Bahasa Indonesia, the one that say B or B, so that's the rhyme scheme. Yeah, the ending sound of each line in a poem. And then stanza is a group of lines bound together by a rhyme scheme. Stanza is like a paragraph in writing. And then refrain is the one that I mentioned before, repetition of words, phrases, and entire lines or a group of lines. So yeah, I think that's all for the elements of poetry. Let me know if you have some questions about that. Okay. And yeah, I'll see you. Thank you.